Tokyo, the world's biggest city by far. With a population of 37 million, it's the mega city to dwarf all others. It also boasts the world's largest metro economy, with a GDP bigger than that of New York and London. Its public transport network, cleanliness, low crime rate and cuisine are unrivaled. It's also in the top 10 of the world's most livable cities.
But to me, this place is a total mystery. So as Japan prepares for the 2020 Olympics and welcomes its 126th emperor and the era of beautiful harmony, we thought it was the right time to come and check out Tokyo's cultural scene.
Abroad, when people think of Japan, they often think of harmony, tradition, modernity and rules. But also Hello Kitty and Pokémon, and rainbows. Cuteness, which translates as Kawaii in Japanese, has become Japan's worldwide image.
Even the food is pastel-colored.
There are even cafes dedicated to this love of all that's cute and colourful. This is Tokyo's Kawaii Monster Cafe, a celebration of kawaii.
I represent a dark character, so of course my costume is basically black. But I'm also supposed to be sexy, so I have two hands attached to the outfit, one touching my breast and the other my buttocks. I also attached a fan and a fish to put in a bit of Japanese culture.
Kawaii is something cute. It could be cute colors, cute clothes, cute hair.
This is really exciting and new and crazy, and it's really fun.
If you go to the States, like, you won't see nothing like this.
Just be yourself, like childhood again, and not really care what anyone says.
From the outside, we have this image of Japan as obsessed with kawaii. But does the world's third largest economy really gravitate frantically towards cuteness? There are professors in Tokyo who study this phenomenon.
The government has actually embraced this cute image for their PR strategy, and it's actually called Cool Japan, something that they want to promote abroad. Why do they want to be seen internationally as cute?
The appeal of having soft power for diplomacy is really appealing, I think, to bureaucrats. On the other hand, kawaii culture sells manga, it sells anime. There's a lot of money behind it.
We're heading to a popular Japanese comics store. Manga is huge here in Japan. I think it's something like 40% of all magazines and books sold are manga. Why is it so popular?
Japanese students have to learn 2,000 characters, roughly, to be functionally literate. And it takes a lot more time than learning the Roman alphabet. So during that period, Japanese can enjoy colorful, diverse narratives through manga instead of reading novels.
Okay, well, let's go and check out some.
Okay.
2 billion manga are sold every year. Shonen for boys, shoujo for girls, seinen for adults. There's even hentai or erotic manga. There's something for everyone.
Kawaii is pretty and perfect, but in manga, anything goes. It can be super violent, super sexual, super weird. What do these extremes say about Japanese society?
More than anything else, they indicate about Japanese society that that country is extremely safe. Of basically any superpower economically, Japan is the least violent. So therefore, within the realm of the imagination, I think Japanese feel a lot more at liberty artistically. People feel free to live out some of their darkest and most twisted fantasies.
And when I look at the women on these shelves, I can't help but notice that they look super sexual, they look super naive. Like, look at this one, for example. We see this big-breasted lady, and on the back we see someone who looks extremely naive. Is this the way that women are mostly portrayed in manga?
I think that would be a fair criticism. There are fewer women in positions of political power. There are fewer women at the head of companies, and fewer women have voice artistically. So you do get manga like this. But this is recently changing. Me Too has been gaining a lot of traction within Japan, and there are more female politicians than ever before. And I think that this will start to influence the manga depictions of women.
In another Tokyo neighborhood, 38-year-old manga artist or mangaka Akane Torikai is also working to change the image of women in manga.
Why is it important for you to show real, normal-looking women in your work?
本当の現実の社会を描きたいっていうのは
I want my work to represent reality, what actually happens in society.
つまりすごいおっぱいが大きいわけじゃなくて
So girls I draw don't have huge breasts. I don't like those figures. They are a product of men's fantasies. I avoid drawing such women, and when I do, well, it's because I use them as an embodiment of men's fantasy. Like this one here. This girl attracts men, but I also depict how she behaves to appeal to men, and why she does so, and what she gains by adopting this behavior.
Torikai, what are you working on at the moment?
30歳の
It's a story about a 30-year-old heroine that starts with her best friend's suicide.
親友が自殺してしまったとこから始まります。
Do you think there's an obsession with youth and adolescence in manga in general?
若さっていうのはすごいあると思う。
There's a strong obsession with youth. Truthfully, I'd have liked to have had a 30-year-old heroine. But during a meeting, or rather a simple conversation, my editor, who I work with on my book, Sensei no Shiroi Uso, told me that he would prefer that I make the heroine a girl younger than 24. Otherwise, we would run the risk of male readers losing interest in the work.
この人が読みたいという気持ちになれないっていう。
So life here isn't all about Hello Kitty cuteness. In fact, you don't have to look that far to find another side of Japanese culture.
The country's most famous monster, Godzilla. Thousands of people are gathering in the center of Tokyo for the Godzilla Festival, celebrating his 65th birthday.
I was born 30 years after Godzilla was first created, but it still thrilled me as a child, and it continues to attract me now.
Godzilla doesn't exist in real life. It's not just a scary monster. It's something beyond us, like God. It attracts us the way religion does. We worship it.
There have been more than 35 Godzilla films. The monster isn't just a creature from a horror movie. He represents the nuclear threat that lingers over Japanese society.
Godzilla was created only 9 years after the end of World War II. It was inspired by the A-bombs that were dropped on Japan and by some nuclear bomb experiments which took place in the Pacific Ocean around that time. So Godzilla's attack on Japan was a metaphor for the war.
Shin Godzilla is the latest episode from 2016, a critique of how the Japanese government managed the Fukushima disaster.
We wanted to know how our government would respond to a crisis, and for that, we scrutinized the government's action in the immediate aftermath of the Fukushima disaster, and that's partly reflected in the film.
Stickers like this went up just months after the 2011 Fukushima nuclear disaster in Japan. Part of a wave of anti-nuclear art, they appeared in the back streets of downtown Tokyo, a city not known for embracing street art.
The artist has become a cult phenomenon, a contemporary artist of dissent in a country that rarely tolerates protest and barely supports modern art. He's a 40-something father born and raised near Fukushima.
My name is 281 Anti-Nuke. After the nuclear reactor accident in Fukushima in 2011, I wanted to warn about the danger of radiation and nuclear power, and I started to draw on the streets. In this country, street art is still considered illegal. To make street art in a place where it's most likely the most surveilled spot in Japan, and perhaps in the world, I had to hide my face under a mask, and my eyes behind dark glasses. I was afraid I'd get arrested if I didn't. I use my stickers to denounce radiation and the danger of nuclear power, but also to express my doubts about this country's political system, having seen it through the lens of all of this. Many of my drawings have a political dimension. Besides, those drawings that criticize the government are very quickly erased.
So anti-nuclear art, kawaii and manga. We've seen a lot of Japanese cultural life, but I feel like there's still a lot I don't understand. I have so many more questions. So no better way to find out more is over a bento box with one of Japan's most famous contemporary artists.
Well, for me, Japanese culture is not complicated. It's the country where I was born and raised. But I think it is difficult to understand a country without understanding how it was formed historically. That's difficult. I think that my works, they all reflect Japanese society. And I believe that's why foreigners might have a hard time understanding them.
Makoto Aida has offered an unflinching social commentary on Japan's culture, highlighting the country's complex norms and exploring topics from sexuality to war. His works range from videos in which he impersonates figures like Osama bin Laden to a banner-size manifesto with his wife and son complaining about the faults of the Japanese education system.
Aida-san,
Yeah.
help me understand Japanese society. Can you describe it for me?
It's kind of a mix between, on one hand, the pre-modern Japanese society, one that had been here for a very long time, and, on the other hand, postmodern European or Western culture. And I think that mixture complicates things. If you take this bento lunchbox, for instance, well, on this side you have Western food, and on the other side, traditional Japanese food. Well, I think today's Japanese society is a little bit like this.
What do you think of this international image of Japan as all Hello Kitty and Pokémon?
I believe it's because Japan lost the war that there are so many cute or kawaii characters in our country. After all, war was generally a man's business, so to speak. Then came Japan's defeat and the arrival of Americans who were physically taller, bigger, stronger, and who occupied Japan. Following that shock, Japanese society began to refute the macho model of the Japanese man. And that's when the image of children and women became more prominent. So yes, I think this evolution within the Japanese society explains why there are so many cute, kawaii characters here. At the very least, I think that's one important reason.
And there seems to be a lot of pressure to follow the rules in Japan, in Japanese society. As an artist, do you feel that, or do you feel censored? Have you got into trouble before?
There are people who argue that democracy is not yet deeply established in Japan. Or rather, to put it another way, that in this country, it's not easy to think on one's own and make one's own decisions. The mere act of doing so is frowned upon. The culture of this country means following the rules and not thinking on an individual scale. Obviously, this kind of society is not a conducive working environment for an artist. But for my part, I'm trying to do my job as I see fit and decide things by myself. Sometimes I'm criticized for the kind of works I display. But that's not why I will compromise.
Lots of your work seems to be inspired by Japanese history, World War II, nuclear disasters. Do you think that Japan has recovered from the traumas of its past?
No, I don't think so. Some of the younger generation have forgotten about the Second World War, or know less about what went on during the war. But if you look at the recent deteriorating relationship between Japan and Korea that we hear a lot about in the news, you can see that those things are the result of unsolved issues in our wartime past. Our successive governments have passed the problem on without resolving them, and I believe that's quite obvious.
From cute art and rebel art to ancient arts.
As Tokyo looks ahead to the Olympics, it remains a city steeped in the past and tradition. Ancient art forms dating back hundreds of years still hold a big place in cultural life.
Elaborate costumes and makeup, stylized music and melodramatic tales of love, life and war. Japanese culture doesn't get more refined than Kabuki. Kabuki performances are famously long, complicated and spectacular. Kabuki actors are superstars in Japan, Getting interviews with them isn't easy. One of the stars agrees to speak to us, but no chance of getting a look backstage or speaking to him in his dressing room.
I think Kabuki has been able to survive for so long because it has continually changed throughout its 400-year history. In a time like today, when entertainment is so diversified, we have to make sure that Kabuki does not lose its raison d'etre.
Dating back 400 years, Kabuki is men-only casts.
The current style was established at the beginning of the 17th century. At first, women also took to the stage, but Japan's rulers at the time saw them as a danger to public morality and banned them from Kabuki. They were replaced by young men, but they too were eventually banned. By mid-17th century, Kabuki was only performed by adult men and was further modernized through exposure to Western cultures.
So even though some of the traditions remain the same, with the help of new technology and electronic music, Kabuki is trying to update its image.
From classics to modern stories, I like the variety Kabuki offers.
It's very elaborate and spectacular, but at the same time, traditional.
They've passed on the traditional stage art through generations, but have always added twists that reflect modern society. That's the great thing about Kabuki.
And before we leave you, I want to take you on a Tokyo experience that is totally out of this world.
Here at the TeamLab Planets Museum, you can wander among mesmerizing walls of light, seas of flower petals and shoals of fish. An interactive digital space devoted to the futuristic creations of Tokyo-based TeamLab.
And it's from here that we'll leave you. Goodbye from Tokyo, a place of pure paradox, where modernity meets tradition, chaos meets harmony, and strict rules meet rebels.